Hey guys, just so you know, this isn't the full version of this video. I originally designed it with a full soundtrack, but even though the soundtrack falls completely within the boundaries of fair use, YouTube won't allow me to include it. So thank you to CuriosityStream for making Volksgeist possible and sponsoring this video. We struck up a deal where if you sign up for their awesome streaming service for less than $15 a year, you're also going to get free access to Nebula, the streaming service I own with my creator friends. The second part of this miniseries and my Nebula original are available on Nebula with complete soundtracks, plus the first video is free. Even though I've been listening to Radiohead pretty much since I was a kid, I never understood Kid A. It was way harder to digest than anything they had made before, at least until The King of Limbs more than 10 years later. So honestly, I pretty much just glossed over the record when it came to my appreciation of Radiohead. I figured the album was just kind of overhyped or not really my style, even though most people consider it to be either the best or second best album by perhaps the band with the best or second best discography of all time. But last month, when I heard the album's 20th anniversary was coming up quick, I decided to take a closer look at it to learn more about its meaning, context, sound, and aesthetics. The best place to learn more about music you know nothing much about is on some tiny little website that sits in an old, forgotten corner of the internet, written by a guy whose name you think might be Tamino Gruber. But you're not sure because you emailed him 2 weeks ago and he never got back to you, which isn't even that surprising considering that just under his email address he wrote a date, June 2001, more than 19 years ago. Despite the fact that the website's formatting is pretty much broken from being so old your browser can't interpret it properly, the entire website is dedicated to information on Radiohead from the Kid A and Amnesiac era, save for the page titled What For, that contains nothing but a bunch of brightly colored text and a terribly compressed JPEG that looks like concept art for a Halloween version of The King of Limbs. Anyway, like I said earlier, after stumbling upon this site, I was able to read a bunch of analysis on Kid A. Of course, after taking into account the faceless author's warning to think for myself and remember that his words are only thoughts and not necessarily truths. In the author's interpretation of the record, titled What is Kid A?, he writes that the night he bought Kid A, he dreamt he had bought the wrong album. That's how much it didn't sound like Radiohead. But after examining the album further, listening to the lyrics, looking over the limited edition art and packaging, he found himself entranced by the cold, distant songs, noticing riddles and symbols hidden throughout the record. He wrote that he soon realized Radiohead were trying to communicate a greater meaning. He just had to figure out what it was. You see, after finishing the OK Computer tour in 1998, Radiohead were practically in shambles. Thom was seriously struggling with his mental health, not feeling inspired to make guitar-based music at all, and the other members of the band felt intense pressure on them as well. They took a long break in which Ed O'Brien went to travel the world while Thom sat at home by the sea in Cornwall practicing the piano. But when they got back, Ed wanted to work on snappy melodic tracks, and meanwhile all Thom wanted was rhythm. He later said that after making so many pop songs, melody had become an embarrassment and he wanted to dissociate himself from it completely. The Greenwoods were also worried about the band getting too esoteric and going in a nonsensical direction. Even their producer Nigel Godrich expressed concern that abandoning their signature guitar sound would be a huge mistake. At one point, the tensions rose so high that Radiohead decided they would break up if they couldn't figure out how to finish the album. But they eventually decided on what to do, and despite an extremely minimal album release with no singles, no music videos, and only a handful of interviews, Kid A went platinum in its first week and won a Grammy. In the words of writer Lori Gava, Radiohead had gone out on a tree limb with a saw in hand, but instead of hacking off their successful career, they built a gorgeous treehouse that everyone ever since would love to replicate. Our mysterious Spanish blogger Tamino Gruber writes that Kid A is full of irony and sarcasm, portraying icy mountains while the world is melting, and combining dark, threatening lyrics with mild, unthreatening instrumentals. Gruber includes a quote from an old interview with Thom Yorke that reads, "The reason you create music or art or write is in order to put things in a way you can possibly deal with it, and death is one of those areas. But we don't seem to spend much time with it, do we? If you're accused of being morbid or bleak, then you're onto a good thing, I'd say. Because our culture is the most fucking desperate culture, desperately trying to avoid anything vaguely depressing. Which is alarming because what's the result? We all know what that is, don't we? We're at a time when we're being presented with undeniable changes in the global climate and fundamental issues that affect every single one of us. And it's the time we're listening to the most hokey shite on the radio and watching vacuous bullshit celebrities being vacuous bullshit celebrities. And desperately trying to forget about everything. Which is fine, you know, but personally speaking, I can't do that." According to our mysterious blogger, there are two central meanings to Kid A. In many ways, the record tells the story of everything Radiohead went through after OK Computer, and the record also supposedly describes the broader experience of being forced to conform in a capitalist society. He supports this interpretation by providing evidence from interviews and, of course, lyrical interpretations. In the end, his interpretation concludes with a paragraph that gave me chills, knowing it was written before the days of targeted algorithmic advertising, data harvesting, and personal information data brokerages. I think this is actually a metaphor about how the system, modern society, and mostly the big corporations created a pattern on who people should be. They are cloning people, making us all plain alike. Therefore, we have no names because we are all the same. We are experiment 0156, Kid A, B, C, D, subject 204, topic 10,020, test specimen number 00928. We are market statistics. We are being mentally cloned. And the next step on this process is that this perfect human prototype will take over the Earth. There are lots of references to that in the artwork, the lyrics, and the video clips. Since everyone will be the same, they will all be one. Kid A is each and every single one of us. Maybe someday people will get out of their comas, but maybe not. Written in 2001. But there are also a lot of other theories online attempting to deduce the true meaning of Kid A. There's one in particular I've seen a lot that describes the record being about a cloning machine, with detailed storylines being extracted from its lyrical content. Other fans claim that the album is really about a dystopian society, in which the protagonist finds himself comfortable with his lack of freedom, only to be later jerked from his blissful ignorance by an unknown cataclysm and thrown into a chaotic new world. He panics and dissociates from his surroundings, retreating into his imagination. After some time, he comes to love the new reality, but later finds out that the dystopian world was real all along. However, his mind has become so full of the beauty he found in the new world, he's unable to go on living in the dystopian one, and the record ends with him killing himself. But despite the depth of theories about Kid A, one of Radiohead's long-standing statements about the record is that it doesn't really mean much at all. But I honestly think that's a pretty common cop-out for an artist to say that their music doesn't have a meaning when they just don't feel like talking about it. And Radiohead have been doing that for years. So while Kid A probably isn't really a full sci-fi concept album like some people think, I'd put money on the idea that Radiohead wrote it as a response to the emotional roller coaster they went on after the success of OK Computer 3 years before. After touring around the world, giving hundreds of interviews, and just emotionally selling themselves out, Thom Yorke described it this way. "I think what we want to do is to break the cycle where a band goes on tour for 9 months, turns into monsters, and then has to sort themselves out and piece together the bits in order to make another album. Or the thing about making records in order to go on tour and all that sort of stuff." And if you really look into Kid A's lyrics, you'll find a lot of them can be applied to the idea of draining yourself completely for the public eye. As rock stars, you have to become a model of perfection for the millions of people who observe you for their own pleasure. You can't be a recluse or an eccentric weirdo. You can only be what they want you to be, because your career is based off of them feeling entertained. And when you're as strange as the members of Radiohead, of course that's going to be a lot to ask. I think Motion Picture Soundtrack is the most meaningful song on Kid A, and one of my favorite tracks ever. It describes how fame can drive a person to the edge of insanity, torturing the soul while it steals your humanity. Motion Picture Soundtrack's dark lyrics combined with its bittersweet, almost comforting instrumental, make it a disturbing lullaby as the band seeks to free their souls from the prison of fame, with beautiful interstellar bursts of harp arpeggios and ghostly chords. Letting go of what they once thought life was all about, they kill their old selves and rise anew to find their next sound and keep on making music, without the emotional burden they experienced as young rock stars. Ultimately, that's what Kid A is all about. Not just the disillusionment of young rock stars, but also the disillusionment we all experience as we get older. I'm 20 years old. I'm the same age as Kid A. I've made a lot of difficult choices in life, and I've been in some difficult situations. I know how hard it is to keep faith that life gets better. And listening to Kid A 20 years after it came out, I can truly feel the band's fear that they had gone too far and lost themselves in the speed of their own lives. I can feel them tugging on their souls, trying to bring themselves back down to earth in the midst of world-shattering chaos. I can understand why they needed to make something that many people called an act of commercial suicide in order to free themselves from the expectations they were trapped underneath. After trading their personal lives for fame, what else could they do but make a mad dash for the exit? In the words of our mysterious Spanish blogger friend, maybe this part is about all the things that numb us up, and that make you never find or fight for what you were looking for. Sleeping pills and alcohol make you not hate life so much. They kill your senses and emotions. They make you numb. You'll stay quiet and give up. The combination of both can kill a person. Everyone thinks they need cheap sex when you don't really need it. This is something that will always make you unhappy because you're always looking for something else. And you'll never find it in there, but you'll keep looking, always in the wrong place. Meanwhile, the sad films will conform us with our own situation because it tells you you're not as fucked up as the other guy. This way you'll never move on, never try to improve things, make your life better, be a better person. I think what he's trying to say is that eventually you're going to realize, if you haven't already, that life is kind of a scam. You probably have developed a bunch of habits, thoughts, ideas, and promises to yourself while you are becoming an adult. You have things you want, things you like, places you want to go. But you're going to realize at some point that life is full of equalizers. Everything has a cost. There's no such thing as free happiness. For every time you advance in life, you're going to lose something you might want more. A former best friend who gets jealous when you accidentally gloat about your new business doing well. Another week you can't see your parents when you go away for work. A pet alone at home and staring out the window while you're out having fun. And at the end of the day, this is what Kid A is really about. Becoming a rock star at the expense of your humanity. To be honest, it's something we all do to one degree or another. This has been Volksgeist. Thank you for watching. What you just watched wasn't the full version of this video. There's an entire second half of the series on Nebula that won't be available on YouTube until next week, because I have to take extra time to remove all of the incorrectly copyright blocked clips and music, the very things that make it a complete and enjoyable project. You see, I barely make money off of YouTube ads. I made just $500 off of more than 1 million views over the last month. For example, my video about Juice WRLD is blocked in multiple European countries and has made me less than $200 in total, despite earning me more than 11,000 subscribers and 1 million views. And this is all because of YouTube's busted copyright system that identifies music and incorrectly blocks it with no way around. And many of my other videos are in a similar situation, about half in total, leading to thousands of dollars of lost revenue because YouTube doesn't know when music is fair use and when it's not. It's really frustrating to work in a broken system, and even harder being a creator on a platform that you just have no control over. That's why my friends and I teamed up to build our own platform where creators don't need to worry about demonetization or the dreaded algorithm. Our platform is called Nebula, and we're thrilled to be partnering with CuriosityStream. Nebula is a place where creators can do what they do best, create. It's a place where we can both house our content ad-free and also make original content and new series that just wouldn't be allowed on YouTube. For example, my original, A Brief History of Synthesizers, explores the history of synthesizers in popular music. I'm very proud of it, and I think you should definitely go check it out, especially because I'm not allowed to make content like this on YouTube, where you can't even include an example of a song for more than 10 seconds. In fact, if you liked this episode, you can access the extended version on Nebula with a full soundtrack and second episode that won't be available on YouTube until next week. The second episode of this miniseries covers Kid A's production and artwork, so you should definitely go check it out. But what does this have to do with CuriosityStream? Well, as the go-to source for the best documentaries on the internet, they love educational content and educational creators. So we worked out a deal where if you sign up for CuriosityStream with the link in the description, not only will you get their great service, you'll also get a Nebula subscription for free. And to be clear, that Nebula subscription isn't a trial. It's free for as long as you're a CuriosityStream member. And for a limited time, they're also offering 26% off their annual plans. That's less than $15 a year for both CuriosityStream and Nebula included. So since we're staying inside anyway, we may as well be soothed by the voice of David Attenborough narrating tales about tiny hummingbirds, or join astronaut Chris Hadfield on a road trip through the universe. Or just check out the second part of this mini-series about Kid A. So if you click the link in the description and get CuriosityStream for 26% off, you'll also get Nebula included for free. Or you can go to curiositystream.com/Volksgeist. It's a great way to support this channel and the educational content community for just $14.79 per year. So just click on the link in the description or go to curiositystream.com/Volksgeist. Clicking on the link really helps out this channel.